Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's virtual office hour. My name is Cassandra McGee. I'm a senior program manager with JFF, and we're glad that you carved out time for our discussion today. Today, we will be discussing achieving program success, and we'll be looking into the ECCA initiative that was led by American Association of Community Colleges, and Adrian Summers will be getting into the depths of that. This program is sponsored by our grant funding through the U.S. Department of Labor's Youth Apprenticeship Intermediaries Project that's led by Andrea Messing-Matthew, who will actually be facilitating our discussion today. As a reminder, this session will be recorded, so if you're not the primary speaker, we do request that you will mute your line for best call quality. However, we always welcome your questions and your input. You can share those via the chat box or wait to our live question and answer time. So with that, thanks again for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Andrea. Andrea?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Like Cassandra said, this is our community of practice virtual office hour, and today we're talking about achieving program success. Just as a reminder, this is an opportunity for us to come together as colleagues and peers to talk about things that we don't always get to talk about in our day-to-day lives. We're used to see each other at conferences and in meetings in the hallways, and we don't do that as much anymore. So this is an opportunity for us to replicate some of that feeling. And so I urge you to write down questions or post them in the chat box as Adrian is speaking, and that way we can have a really robust discussion while we're on the phone together. So with that, Adrian, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. And welcome, everyone. My name is Adrian Summers. I'm the Executive Director of Apprenticeship for AACC, which is the American Association of Community Colleges. And we at AACC was awarded a cooperative agreement from the Department of Labor. And as part of that, we developed a tool and resource kit. So today's topic, Achieving Program Success, Lessons from the Expanding Community College Apprenticeship Initiative. We refer to that as ECCA. So please advance to the next slide. So our ECCA team is Jen Worth, who's Senior Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development for AACC. Myself, Letitia Ford, is our Project Monitoring Specialist of Apprenticeships, and Rosie Gabriel is our Project Coordinator of Apprenticeships. Next slide. So today we're going to talk about the Virtual Apprenticeship Network Toolkit that is part of the ECCA project initiative. We refer to the Virtual Apprenticeship Network Toolkit as the VAN. And then certainly there is an opportunity for questions. You may either put your questions in the chat, and I'm happy to answer, or we should have some time at the end for some additional questions. So please ask away today. Much appreciated for you to do that, and I'd love to be able to share the resources. So I'll start a little bit about what the Virtual Apprenticeship Network Toolkit is. It is interactive. It is a web-based toolkit. It is found on the AACC homepage. Once you go to the homepage, there is a quick link section in the middle of the page, and there is a quick link for the Virtual Apprenticeship Network. Click on that link, and you can enter the Virtual Apprenticeship Network Kit. So it is a guide. It will assist you to design, build, implement, enable, sustain, and evaluate registered apprenticeship programming at community colleges. And this was geared for community colleges, but certainly if there are other organizations that you're representing, many of these tools can be adapted for those institutions. It has a lot of resources and promising practices. There are many success stories from our community college partners, and we also have data that we've collected as part of this initiative. Next slide. So it was built, meaning the VAN was built on 5 themes of successful practice. And as you notice on the screen, there is a honeycomb. The honeycomb is the Virtual Apprenticeship Network, and there are various topics And there are the 5 areas that once you click on that link, it'll take you to additional resources. So the 5 links are implementing a registered apprenticeship program, effective messaging on the value of registered apprenticeship programs, managing and sustaining registered apprenticeship programs, and the expanding community college, or what we refer to as the ECCA data, and a quarterly showcase of ECCA partner projects. Next slide. And again, this is just pointing to all of the different links. Once you click on the link, there is additional resources on each of these 5 topics. And obviously the ECCA data is in the center. So please advance. So one of the topics is implementing a registered apprenticeship program. And as part of implementing a registered apprenticeship program, there are an additional 6 links. Assessing college readiness for registered apprenticeships. And as part of assessing community colleges, assessing the readiness aspect is additional information that will help you when you're determining the readiness. And some of those topics are, you want to gain a clear understanding of the basic components of a registered apprenticeship program, determine the labor market and industry partner needs, conduct an inventory of your college's existing assets to determine your college's ability to satisfy the labor market and industry partner needs, and then assess college-wide components and departments that will support the registered apprenticeship program development, adoption, and success. And finally, the last item is when you're doing the assessment, you certainly want to engage all departments of your community college, both credit, non-credit, because almost every aspect of the college is touched by registered apprenticeship. The next one is sponsor an intermediary or related instruction provider, identifying the ideal role for your institution. And for each one of these, there are various rules and guidelines to follow based on your state. So typically there are several roles that a community college can play. The state in which the college resides may determine the extent of a college's option. Typically a college can choose between 3 options, and that is they can provide the related technical instruction, or what's referred to as the RTI only. They can serve as an intermediary for the registered apprenticeship program, or they can become a registered apprenticeship program sponsor. And most of the time when you are a sponsor, you're also providing the related instruction as part of being the sponsor. So again, depending on the role of the college and by partnering with the industry on a registered apprenticeship program, you can create many opportunities for the apprentices and your institution. So then the next one is identifying the potential strategies in right to work states versus non-right to work states. And that is going to be 4 different types of standard documents that can be used when registering an apprenticeship program. And the 4 standards typically include an individual non-joint, a group non-joint, an individual joint that will include an intermediary such as a labor union, or the 4th choice is a group joint, and that'll also include an intermediary such as a labor union. The next aspect in this section is establishing a registered program at a college. Once a decision to implement a registered apprenticeship program at your college is made, there are many pieces that need to be put into place to achieve the success. There's several steps that AACC recommends. Definitely define your vision of the registered apprenticeship programming that you are going to participate with or implement at your institution. Develop your internal support systems to support your programming. And again, as I said, most departments within a college does touch apprenticeship, so it is very helpful to have all aspects of the college involved. Identify your champion or your cheerleader. There definitely is someone that should be cheering on the apprenticeship and help navigate as you're making decisions between the institution, the partners, and the apprentices. Define and build your program model. And again, there can be many different models that you're utilizing, and what works for you may not work for another institution, but there are several examples on our website. And finally, you want to implement and scale your registered apprenticeship program model. And again, that is many times you're going to do some tweaks after your first cohort, but as you progress through apprenticeship, it does get more seamless and very streamlined process. So the next one that is part of this section is calculating the return on your investment. And again, that is as simple as, a simple formula would be your benefits minus your costs equals your return on your investment. And that is going to be calculated very differently for many institutions, but I always recommend to follow what you're doing for your contract training model as a starting point and as the framework to decide how you're going to calculate your return on investment with apprenticeship. And then finally in this section is registering new registered apprenticeship standard programs in state apprenticeship agency states versus the Office of Apprenticeship states. We do have an interactive map on our website that does list the states that are part of the OA states, and then the SAA states are also listed, although they are changing and they are updating. So please be advised to make sure, because there has been some states that have gone from the Office of Apprenticeship to having state offices of apprenticeship within their state. Next slide. So effective messaging on the value of registered apprenticeship programming is another section in this particular VAN toolkit. So effective messaging to college boards. And again, the college boards are some of your decision makers for your institution. So it is definitely very good to have what you as an institution and what your vision is in order to do that effective messaging to the college boards. The second one is the effective messaging to political leaders. And again, this is some messaging that may be used as you're working with your local political leaders in your state for additional funding, for additional assistance, and for additional navigation as you are contacting your employers and you're partnering with various employers in the area. The next section is employer engagement and calculating the return on investment for industry. And again, this is a lot of, how are you engaging your employers? Obviously, with an apprenticeship program, you need to have your employers in place in order to have a place for your students. So it is very vital to engage those employers. And from personal experience, being at a college that was part of ECCA prior to joining AACC, I always recommending having those meetings and bringing in various industry and finding out who is interested in apprenticeship because as we know, almost every occupation is in dire need of employees. So therefore, the apprenticeship model is a great strategy. The next section in this effective messaging is effective marketing strategies to promote apprenticeship programs. And again, this is your marketing department at your institution. It's vital to all new programming. Good marketing provides insight to deliver new products and services to meet the existing needs. The next section is effective messaging to college faculty. And as faculty certainly are the group that do have the initial contact with your apprentices, it is important to have that buy-in from your college faculty. The next section is engaging with WIOA, state and federal partners, and preparing students effectively for rewarding careers is the mission of the community colleges. But it's also the goal for policymakers, businesses, and other community stakeholders. So we have found at AACC that apprenticeship programs address the skills gap because they immediately place workers in unfilled jobs. Companies offering the apprenticeships can adjust their training to fit current organizational needs. And as an administrator, it's important to be involved and bridge relationships with your state and federal Office of Apprenticeship. And then community stakeholder engagement. The community stakeholders, traditionally it's been associated with the construction trades, but registered apprenticeships are evolving. They're including high growth industries such as the IT, advanced manufacturing, finance and business, and healthcare. And to successfully engage a whole community of stakeholders, a college needs to have a comprehensive understanding of their own community and business needs and the value apprenticeship can offer to meet those needs. And finally, running a successful National Apprenticeship Week. National Apprenticeship Week is typically held the second week of November, and the dates have been announced. They are available on the apprenticeship.gov website, and it is not too early to start planning some of the many activities to promote apprenticeship at your institution for the 2022 year. Next slide, thank you. Managing and sustaining a registered apprenticeship. And again, in this section, there are 5 different key points. Increasing diversity and inclusion through registered apprenticeship programs at community colleges. And again, this is something that we have looked at. We do have, and there's also some success stories of how to do that that are listed on our website. There's also a section on some additional resources that will assist in increasing that diversity and inclusion through registered apprenticeship program. The next section is apprenticeship data and tracking requirements. Insights. And again, there is a lot of apprenticeship data and tracking requirement insights that are part of the ECCA data that we've been collecting since the beginning of this project, was March of 2019. This project was originally supposed to end February the 28th of 2022. We do have an extension that will take us through data collection through the end of June, so June 30th of 2022. The next one is applying management systems to effectively manage a successful registered apprenticeship program. And again, with this particular section, you're looking at, because of the rigor of the program and the standards that are established for each registered apprenticeship program, AACC highly recommends a method to track the required documentation, We also recommend that management systems be put in place at the college so they can monitor apprenticeship programs and work directly with industry on continued expansion and support of the apprentices. Some of the things that you're going to want to track is your demographic data system and achievement data system for apprentices. You will want to track your instructed data system, and that is literally a central place where you can keep track of the information needed at your college, such as the number of courses a faculty member is teaching, and when they are going to be teaching specific courses that are related to the related instruction for apprenticeship. Your company data systems, that's basic data specific to the companies that you've partnered with. Program data systems, because as you add occupations, you're going to want to have a tracking method to track all of the occupations. We recommend a CRM system for your outreach team. This can be something as simple as Salesforce or HubSpot. Could be one or two of the products that may be useful in doing the outreach. Some type of marketing data system. And that is all part of applying management systems to the effectively manage a successful registered apprenticeship program.
So Adrian, I'm wondering if I can pause there a little bit and just ask, how are you finding that community colleges and other partners are using this toolkit?
So our colleges are using this toolkit. So we do have success stories that are on the website as part of this toolkit. And then we go through and literally list some of the key points that are very helpful to think about as you're implementing a registered apprenticeship program. And this was developed for individuals that are literally starting apprenticeship, who are already involved in apprenticeship, and who may be interested in scaling apprenticeship.
So if you have a community college that's relatively new to the space, who's interested in working with their feeder schools, who's interested in working with their community programs, but just not entirely sure where to start, where do you recommend they begin in this virtual apprenticeship network home?
I would basically start with how to set up the program, how to set up a registered apprenticeship program. And there's many tools to start that. This is also a great tool as you are hiring additional staff for apprenticeship, to start with as a training mechanism, to understand what the different definitions are. What does it, how do you navigate the apprenticeship space?
That's really helpful. So I'm just curious from the audience if there are particular questions that are kind of bubbling. I have thoughts of my own, but I want to make sure to open up the floor. Are there questions that are circulating for all of you?
And then, what stage are you in? Are there any that are just starting apprenticeship? Are there some that are already connected with apprenticeship? And are there some people that are on the call that may be scaling apprenticeship?
I have a question, Adrian, because it's something that basically that we've talked about, not just through the work through AACC, but also with other projects as well, is that regardless of the organization, internal stakeholder buy-in is essential in order to build a successful program and to keep it sustainable and scaling. So what did you find basically whether it's through your work at Howard Community College or with AACC? What are some of those key things that really kind of helped increase or improve the outcomes for internal stakeholder engagement?
For the internal stakeholders, which would be your college as a whole, I would literally host what I refer to as wider college meetings. I would invite someone from literally each department, credit, non-credit, finance, admissions, marketing, deans, our e-learning department. So someone from every department. And as we knew we were going to be taking an additional occupation to Maryland's Apprenticeship Training Council, which is the body that approves the occupations in the state of Maryland. So as we were going to what we refer to it as MATSE, we then had the opportunity to have a discussion throughout the wider college of how it impacted everyone throughout the college. Was there something that we as the apprenticeship team did not think about that we needed to address? You know, and it could be as simple as an apprenticeship student. This is, again, similar to a contract training. So the student was not paying the tuition, and we needed to make sure those students were coded specifically so that they wouldn't get the phone calls that asked, you know, why they hadn't paid for that particular class in that particular semester. So there's there's a lot of nuances that you must really look at in order to do that. So yes, and this is some of our data. So as of March the 31st, this was a project that was originally supposed to last for 3 years. It's lasting a little bit longer, but the initiative was to provide 16,000 apprentices as part of this initiative with the Department of Labor. As you can see, March 31st, we're at 19,544. And currently, as of today, we're 20,200. So that is going to continue to increase through June 30th, actually. We serve over 613 occupations. We do have about 64% that are new employees, but about 36% that are existing or incumbent workers, which is another huge aspect for community colleges, because in addition to having new students, you also have the opportunity to have new students that are directly from industry and your partners. So and part of this project, we represented over 106 community colleges total. We had 8 consortiums, 58 individual colleges, 31 programs that were actually the registered apprenticeship sponsor, 8 global industry partners, and we did have an advisory board that helped and assisted making the decisions and really developing the ECCA project during the course of this project. Next slide.
So, because we're almost at time, we have about 2 minutes left. And so if you were to like summarize, I guess, what would be some of the key takeaways that led to this success? I hugely applaud AACC and this ECCA project for achieving and overachieving the metrics and the goals here. So what would be, I said, if you have to give the top 2 or 3 things that led to this success?
The top 2 to 3 things is really working with your employers and your colleges to really have that employer engagement and to really demonstrate how it can be successful and how you can work with them. Certainly, this is not a project to reinvent the wheel. This is a project to use your existing curriculum and your existing programming for apprenticeship. They're the top 2.
I'm really glad you emphasized that, Adrienne, because this is something we talk about a fair amount, is that apprenticeship is not about reinventing the wheel. It's about using what you have, making sure that it's industry relevant. Like if it's really not industry relevant, then maybe it's time to rethink it, right? But making sure that you take the good stuff that you have as a community college and that it's attracting both employers and students, connecting them, but that you're not reinventing something brand new that kind of sits in a different subsection of the college. That's a really important key takeaway that I want to make sure that we hammer home on. So we have the contact information here for Jen, Adrienne, and Rosie. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Cassandra, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks so much, Adrienne, for coming on and highlighting the work of AACC through the ECCA initiative. Again, if you guys are looking for additional resources, reach out to Adrienne and please visit the van. There's a lot of great information there. So this recording, as well as recordings from other virtual office hours, are hosted within our community of practice, which you can see the link is there. If you want to join us for upcoming discussions or reach out to us regarding resources for your registered apprenticeship programs, or just want to connect to look and see, hey, here's some best practices or promising practices that we're utilizing. You want to highlight what you're doing, feel free to email me. My email is there. But please continue to connect with us for upcoming sessions and to continue the conversation about how youth apprenticeship works. Thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.